Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome to your weekly dose of newsy infotainment. It's Let's Be Treasonable, coming to you from the luxurious studios of Radio Titans in Los Angeles with your cognitive dissidents on the panel this week. Comedian, artist, and host of the Nerd Goat podcast, Mr. Ed Greer. You can acknowledge.
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's me.
This is already going swimming. Also on the panel this week, comedian, writer, actress, and trekker, Klee Wiggins.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for coming in. As always, we are joined by comedian, scholar, and the black voice of reason, Mr. Tymon Shipp.
Power to the people. Good to be here, yes.
Thank you very much. Good to have you here. I'm Dr. David Robinson, your Vin Scully for the impending apocalypse. And as usual, we are also joined by our invisible panelists joining us via the magic of pre-recorded sound and telephony. It is Will Durst with this week's Burst of Durst.
Hey guys, Will Durst here with a few choice words about how we got to be a country that forcibly separates kids from their parents. Easy to figure out, we got trumped. The 45th president has dragged us down to his level, and every time you think we've reached a new low, he digs another sub-basement. And now it's normal. We become anesthetized, built up a tolerance. The very phrase President Donald Trump should be surreal. It's a Saturday Night Live skit. One of those not very funny Saturday Night Live skits they slide on after the second appearance of this week's band. But now, Mr. Big Tough Guy decides to institute zero tolerance for immigrant families, and he's taken down the entire Republican Party with him. But these enablers are fine. They've already acquiesced to being anti-logic and anti-environment and anti-democracy and anti-fidelity. Attorney General Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III actually used the Bible to justify its policy separating immigrant parents from their children, using the exact same passage the South cited to defend slavery. But other administration officials utilized a whole bevy of excuses. The Democrats are responsible. We're just upholding the law. Using kids as hostages is not our policy. The courts made us do it. The Torah says it's okay. Obama did it. The vast majority are drug mules. They're just tiny future rapists. Crooked Hillary is to blame. Bill Clinton had an affair. 9/11 was an inside job. Putin should be emperor of the world. What kids? Finally, the president signed an executive order that changed the policy he formerly claimed wasn't a policy and couldn't be changed. Then the First Lady visits one of the detention centers while wearing a $39 jacket that had the words, "I don't really care, do you?" painted on the back. Wow, at least she didn't offer the kids cake. For Let's Be Treasonable, I'm Will Durst.
Thank you very much, Will. Some great points there. I think, what it really comes down to, I don't know if you guys saw the sort of interview scrum that Trump gave on the White House lawn earlier this week. But I think there was one quote that really nailed how he feels about the whole thing and what was behind the idea to basically put these kids in internment camps. What was it he said?
I hate the children.
That was it. And one of the other things, like I had cracked wise on the social media this week when he announced that he wants to blend the Department of Education with the Department of Labor, and it sort of makes sense because if you've already got the kids in the concentration camps, you really need to make it easier to get them into the work camps. Mm-hmm. And again, I want to go back to something the president said. This goes back to when he was on the campaign trail. So this is really nothing new. But if you doubt that he wants to eliminate child labor laws just, from his own mouth.
And we're going to get those minors back to work. I'll tell you what. We're going to get those minors back to work.
So there you have it. I mean, I realize that he contradicts himself all the time, but, you got to take some of what he says at face value. So I think those are two interesting quotes. Panel? And you're sitting there rolling your eyes, and
you know what? I just think it's really Will Durst hit it right on the head. We've been eroded down into Klee is in a few Facebook wars with people who are before this thing, people we identified as friends, people we identified as people who were like, oh, they're if not progressive, at least sane. Mm-hmm. And a couple of them are soldier types. And for some reason, it's been conflated that if you're a soldier and you're really down with America, you're okay with this border stuff because a soldier, keep everybody safe, da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, oh, I didn't hear about all these soldiers getting capped by cartel members at the border. Soldiers are dying on the border because the cartel members are coming and chopping them up with machetes, chopping their heads off. I didn't know this.
Right.
What news site reported that? You know what I mean? This false conflation, again, using the military, the right's propensity to use the military to justify almost anything is insane. Mm-hmm. And the support they get is insane.
I know, I know most of my brother's former unit. And none of them, most of them live in Arizona, a border state that has a lot of immigrants in it. And most of them have no problem with immigrants coming to this country. And as long, even if you come to this country because and most of them have no problem and are very much against the family separation. Like my brother is very apathetic politically and apolitical, even though he did 4 tours and got his shoulders blown up and had a lot of problems. He's very apolitical for somebody who's had politics nearly ruin his life.
Wow.
And he's still this is the one thing where he's like, I am against that though. I don't think you should put children in cages.
Well, it's always amazing that you try to tell me that the reason why we're having problems in our country is because of immigrants. Immigrants built this country. Immigrants are the reason why a lot of people here. I mean, Trump's parents were immigrants.
Yeah.
His wife is an
2
immigrant.
of his 3 wives are immigrants.
I mean,
they're immigrants, and you don't see any separation. You keep talking about Mexico and everything. Mexico, it's called Los Angeles, asshole. So you cannot get away from them. And there are people, you're not going to say that everybody's an MS-13 gang member or whatever.
Oh, no, he is saying that. That's
he
pretty much exactly what he's saying.
He wouldn't know MS-13, 18th Street. He wouldn't know shit if they walked up to him. He wouldn't know either one of those guys
and the Sureños, you're not what you think they are.
Right. You have no idea. And so we still need people. The avocado problem, we're having problems with getting our avocados out. We know California loves their avocado. We have no people to pick them. Mm-hmm. You're cutting back on all these different jobs.
They don't know. If you were to, if Trump's stated plan were to succeed, and we'd have little to no immigration from Mexico, the produce industry and the restaurant industry would literally collapse overnight. All of these restaurants that these Republicans are going to be kicked out of would be closed. Yeah. Because they'd have no workers. Right. Because it would cost you would eating it, you'd need to be a millionaire to eat at the Cheesecake Factory. Because you'd have to pay people twice as much to do the job. Considering what Trump is doing to healthcare, you almost do have to be a millionaire to eat at the Cheesecake Factory these days. At least for the, I'm just saying, it would be, whatever you think you're paying for a meal when you eat out. If you wanted to go to Applebee's, that meal that costs you $8.99 is going to cost you $25. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's the reason why we're able to eat at a reasonable price when we eat out in this country, the reason why we're able to get produce at reasonable prices in this country, and why it's actually is our vegetables in this country are very cheap compared to, especially if you go to Europe and try to buy a banana, you're going to be paying 3 times what you pay in America. Right. And it's because we have workers it's because we're close to the area where they're grown, and we pay workers very little to pick that stuff ship it up. They've never wanted to pay. I mean, living in a capitalistic society, they've never wanted to pay labor. Labor has always been a problem. Yeah. You always try to find a person. Before the Mexican, it was the black man. You said, oh, he's taking your jobs. Well, he started to get his life together. Now you're trying to say it's the Mexican. Now you're saying it's the immigrant. Yeah. You're not... You're just villainizing everybody when it's really capitalist. I mean, I don't have a problem with. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I don't have a problem with a capitalistic society. I do have a problem with a society that doesn't reward or doesn't see that they're that we're going to be a capitalistic society and we have to pay for it in some kind of way. It's unchecked capitalism that's the problem. That and Trump at his Nazi rally in Minnesota this week has been talking at various press events this week. He's been talking about how he cut more regulations than
Presidents, other presidents did in 4 years, in 8 years, in 16 years, and a lot of people
because
have been
those
making the
presidents
point
recognize that people shouldn't die just so that we
well,
can have
and
bananas.
also because the president that served 16 years just doesn't exist in this country anyway.
Well, the regulations were there because every time that we took away the regulations, you fucked the people.
Yeah.
So
And
they
that's
had
what
to
they
give you the
continue to do.
regulations.
It's,
People
and
died.
it's everything from regulations on industry to regulations regarding voting rights.
Yeah.
Anytime, there's
So you didn't screw the American worker.
South that the Supreme Court last year, a couple of years ago, said, we don't need to keep an eye on voting in the South. And as soon as they pulled those regulations, immediately, like North Carolina said, all right, time to gerrymander and check everyone's IDs. Let's get those poll taxes going. And how about a reading test?
Oh, yeah.
So it's one of those things, like I've said on this show a million times before. Should we need affirmative action? Should we? No. Do we? Looking at the way
people
things
can't be
are in this
trusted.
country?
Right.
Yes.
No.
Yes, we do need it.
Right.
There's a reason why licensing for things like guns and and cars and boat, like you need a license to some degree to operate a car, a boat, any sort of like motorized vehicle. We would hope guns in most states.
I mean, you just had a guy who got caught with 570 guns.
Yeah.
They laid them all
but
out.
personally, I think he was just saving them until the holiday times came, and then he could turn them all into the cops for Ralph's supermarket gift cards.
Okay.
Or like stocking stuffers.
Yeah, there you
Here's
go.
a Derringer.
Yeah.
But it's like the American public has repeatedly shown that left to our own devices, we truly cannot be trusted and we need regulations. It's like he wants to just turn this country into be running by a bunch of like adolescents who just got their license. And that's how you flip off a bridge, and that's how the town in Footloose happened.
Honestly, looking at the people he's put on his cabinet, I think you're giving him too much credit. He doesn't even want the teenagers who have no responsibility.
Yeah.
We're talking unqualified toddlers.
Well, you're looking at also you notice that they're coming out with this new school here in L.A., which is about for transportation, and it's supposed to be for vocational. Well, we had that same vocation when we were in high school. Mm-hmm. If you didn't want to go to high school, what'd you do? You went to Votech.
Yeah.
And you got you a job as an electrician. Nurses you could become a nurse at 18 years old. You didn't have to go. Now, all of a sudden, we got these great things. No, we had that shit. You took it away and you privatized everything and you screwed us. And now you want to bring it back.
I do think vocational schools is a good thing, and I do think a lot of kids should go straight from middle school to vocational school, or maybe a year or two of high school to learn some like a little bit of advanced basic math and advanced basic English comprehension skills, and then go straight to vocational school.
They just did a study.
At 10th grade.
They just did a study on what you're just talking about, and they talked about autonomy. Autonomy is what it happens in little small villages. How do they get them to focus? How do you get the little kid who's to focus? Whereas the kid here in the United States, how do you get him to focus? Well, you have to motivate him in a way that, hey man, you know what? I'll let you all go early if we knock this out. Okay, then all of a sudden they get focused. Whereas that kid in that little town, it starts with the family. They just keep them going. And hey, when they get to school, they know what they're supposed to do. They don't have to do all that. But an American kid, and they talked about that. How do we get these kids motivated to do the things, to get them away from their video games and get them to where they can go to school and learn? Autonomy is the way to do it, to motivate them.
Yeah, because a kid who's like mechanically inclined or that inclined in that direction of sort of blue collar type of work, if you give them that thing, because eventually if they're interested in doing something else with their life, they will do it eventually. But what you're giving them is the resources, because they'll be earning money, and the tools because they'll know that they're capable of learning. It's like you have a lot of these kids who go to school and they're not book learners, but they could take apart and put together a car 10 times in an hour. And if you give that kid the opportunity to show you are an intelligent person, and then let them know give them that sort of push, and then once they want to go, and if they ever want to pursue another vocation, the only vocation that kids can do straight out of high school or even before high school is culinary school.
Well, the average construction worker is 28 years old. It used to be 19.
Yeah.
They used to have, they were 19.